What it do? Yo, I think it's about time we have a conversation talking about Joy Teller. I'm gonna tell you something. Something I think a lot of people were waiting for. They were waiting on her downfall, and it's sad to say this, but you know what tends to happen? I don't think a lot of people was looking for her to just fall. They wanted her to plummet. And the reason why is because the ignorance of the cockiness of just talking down on men. And you think I'm lying, you look up some of her old clips of talking about baby men, talk about sissy men. She has the well-being to be able to take care of these men. And she just needs certain things done. She was like, she was trying to reverse the roles of man because she was like, she make her own money. She don't need a man for nothing. I think it came a time, it has came a time where the corporations fed up. And she was doing a runaround. Cocky. Just talking about what she don't want, what she need, how she made her rankings, how she achieved her success. When a lot of her success was behind the dude that she was messing with, which was the guy that they gave him a break, meaning that he had to take a leave from the job and he was still being paid. But when the second allegations came out, they had to off him because it was basically tied to the corporation, which is ESPN. I believe FS1, right? FS1, which was linked to them, and they like, look, we're not taking on all these lawsuits with you here because so many things are just coming back onto the corporation. And you know, with the corporation, they start looking at everything, and it's like, wait a minute, she's tied to this. Don't get it twisted. People know what's going on behind the scenes. This is why you're able to get away with what you're getting away with. But this is where the problems lie. When you have footage and also text messages stating that her out was to actually say that she was taken advantage of, you already know the play that's been made out in the background. So they already know that she's going to use the sexual allegations to get herself out of anything. And they know that. So they like, look, we're going to play it this way. Because we already know what's going on. That's why they didn't just offer right away. You can tell. The writing was on the wall. They were just setting it up and playing it out. And then when they played it out, they like, look, we're going to set it up and we're going to do some checkers play. We're going to use checkers. We're going to move everybody off the board little by little. Little by little. And the dude, Ocho, I forgot how you say his name. Ocho, I forgot how you say his name. You know what I'm talking about. Smooth dude, smooth cat. But I got a chance to see Wally. Marcus Wally, is that how you say his name? Football player. I know his name. I'm saying his name wrong. He brought up some things in the background about dude. And then we found out that he was sleeping with Teller. That's how she got on his show. And Marcus Wally, if I'm saying his name right, he was actually on the FS1, but it might have been labeled something different. If I'm wrong, I watched them all, so don't think I did not watch them all. I watched them all, and he was a dope dude because the way his perspective was on sports is coming from a real NFL player. And the other dude is an NFL player too. But you can tell that he was actually doing a lot of stuff for clickbait. Even the way he was like snapping out and wilding out because he was a clean cut dude. But he had that look, that appeal, that woman be like, yo, he a dope dude. But you can tell that he was doing things to just go up and above. Now, when you look at Shady, I love my man. Philly all day. He was smooth with it. You could tell that he was talking like himself. But the other dude, Ocho, he was he was wild, man. But when you found out that he was sleeping with Teller, you could see that certain things. Because let's be real, she used to be on the show, and she just was just outlandish. And you could just see people was not feeling that. Just not. And as a guy, just watching the sports shows, you would sit back and be like, yo, why is she running her mouth like that. She was running her mouth like she was a baby mama or something. Like, I was like, yo, what are you talking about? Like, why are you talking about dudes that did all the things that they did to get to where they got to? And it's starting to seem like that you just throwing shots at these dudes. Like, you like trying to like diminish their credibility. And I'm just sitting like, I'm like, yo, this not gonna play out right. It's not. Because it come a time when dudes start to get tired of watching somebody talk like that. And you notice Ocho, he didn't say anything. You could just tell certain things wasn't playing out right. But what I loved about Shady, he used to check that. Be like, yo, hold up. You ain't gonna just be talking about this dude like this. I understand, like, but you could tell that when he say what he says, he don't try to offend, but you know where he was going. You could come on, man. When you have a job, you can't just go gun ho. So I understand how certain roles were played along with the things that were going on behind the scenes, but you can also tell that it was a time and a place when the corporation had to be like, look, all that ass is gonna go, but we're gonna have to do this right. And they did it in a strategic way. They not let her. They gave her a break. Of course, they give them a pay because they still are under contract. But then you find out that they did not renew her contract. They had to play it smart. That way they don't get sued. Corporations are not just going to get sued and blatantly just pay all this money and look like they've been discriminatory. So they had to play it right. And then when you find out that all the things that were in play with her, she played her way out of the game. Most likely, you will probably never see her again unless it's on her own podcast that majority of the people were not watching her stuff. So she has to basically get her fans, which going to be whoever they are. That's why you started noticing she couldn't really talk about sports on her own podcast. She had to start talking about relationships, and you already know what direction that tends to go. But I think we reached the point where as though we're done watching her, because this is the thing, man. When you get to a point where as though we talk about the stereotypes, she fit all those narratives. The loud mouth, the very embracive of we should legalize prostitution. When she said that, I was look. We already know what direction, what role, the path that she's on. We understand it. We also understand who her brother is. We also understand too, from being a waitress, serving drinks, and somehow she landed past everybody else that was in the building, surpassed all that to be on the show. And then when you hear her commentator skills, did I say that right? You know what I'm talking about. And she just go right past everything and say, well, look, we just understand that I don't like how he just run past I don't know, man. There were certain things that she used to say, and I used to be like, yo, look, I watched it. And it's just certain ways of how she did stuff. It had nothing to do about her being a woman. So all this narrative is a woman, a black woman, gotta stop with this shit. So everything is a lead. Well, for her as a black woman, shut up. If you dope at your job, you dope at what you do. When you say, look, man, I ain't trying to compare it, but when you seem like Michelle Beadle, like she started doing some things that was outlandish. But I remember a time when she was commentating, and you was like, damn, she dope. I didn't even notice. I'm not gonna say I ain't noticed, but it wasn't something important that she was a white lady. And furthermore, you didn't hear, well, as a white woman, no. It's just that when she started becoming irate, that was later. And I think what happens is when it comes to the women, they both start doing it. They start doing outlandish things that start becoming more personal. too emotional. And when you start seeing that emotion flying past, eventually it gets to a point where as though everybody start to be like, all right, it's time to get her ass out. Because you start to do stupid stuff that's making people be turned off. Like, one thing about sports is predominantly men that watches. Not to say that women don't watch, but check this out. Women don't move the needle when it comes to sports. Just don't. And you get tired. You're going to get tired. Alright? So, now that we see Taylor out, you're going to start to see a lot of people moving and shaking out here. Because we are at a point now where as though things done like hit the wall now. Those ways of just allegations and just doing these little things, subliminals and all that time is up. Alright? So we're most likely not going to see that too much now. We're going to see women doing that commentating, and it's going to be presentable and it's going to be respectful. But those days of people just outlandishly just saying whatever they want and then thinking it's not going to be repercussions, nah, they ain't going to fly no more. We seen that when Cam Newton became on ESPN, and a black girl, I forgot her name. I'd never ever seen her before, but I remember she went off on Cam, and I'm sitting there like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, why are you talking like this? Like, for what? And it's sad because when you see this happen, it turns you off because it's like, wait a minute, how come you just can't talk about the sports and you start talking like you're a black woman going against a black man in a relationship with a domestic? It's like, yo, what are we doing? What are we doing? It gets turned off because you're thinking you're doing something, but what happens is you start to turn the viewers off. And when you start doing that, you end up turning the corporation over to the point they got to off you. It's like, all right, this hiring thing, I put women in certain places. This ain't working no more. And why you think they're watching the money? It all comes down to money. So when you think you're going to be able to be loud and rambunctious and just say whatever you want on these corporations, and it's not just the corporation. You said something about the people that's making the money, and that's sports. So when you start to see this, they're not having it no more. Those days are up. They like, yo, all right, we don't allow you to be loud and everything. So now they're looking at that, and they like, look, your time is up. We're not hearing this shit no more. Enough. And that's what happened. Enough happened. And when enough happens, that's when everything comes to a halt. And now the rehiring phase starts. And now that's when the narrative gonna start to be pushed. No black people in position. Shut up. Can't make everything into something that's always a racist thing. Because we're starting to see that when you starting to see certain narratives push, it becomes a thing of they start hiring and putting people in positions that should not be in that position. And I don't care what you say. What comes down to, it comes down to when people want to see people do their job. They don't want to see personal attacks. They want to see commentating. And when you don't see commentating no more, you start to see a group of women that's just blatantly just saying outlandish shit. Eventually there come a time where it's though, yo, corporations like, all right, we over this shit. Enough. It's enough. This is over. It's overly done now. And not only that, you're seeing too much disrespect. And it's like, look, it's good to commentate. Men gonna go back and forth. We're gonna say crazy stuff. But this is the problem when it comes down to women. And they don't like to say it, but I'm gonna say it. There come a time where, as men, we have to watch ourselves and what we say about the woman, because for one, allegations, and then all of a sudden they start to use the whole term, I felt uncomfortable. And then next thing you know, you catch your lawsuits. Stays over. They're not playing that game no more. Now you can't play that game no more. Because now they like, look, your ass out of here. Out of here. So, I hope that a lot of people end up learning something from the Joy Teller incident. And what you're going to end up learning from that incident is that running your mouth all the time, thinking you tough, you run things when your ass don't run anything. And then, not only that, you blatantly said in a message that you feel powerful because the powerful man that got you to that position got put out. So now you feel more powerful because you had the leeway. And your leeway was the claim victim. And the victim was you got taken advantage of. It's a shame that the gameplay that has been played, everybody already know what kind of game that is being played out here, right? Everybody knows. Not only that everybody knows, we also seen numerous of people that use that same gameplay. But what tends to happen is it keeps getting played. So what tends to happen is they start looking at that and they already know that it's a moneymaker. But what happens is the big wigs say, all right, we already made a lot of money off of people doing this, but now it's happening to us. And you have a certain culture that's really, really turning the tables over. It's time for this to stop. And when they want it to stop, it's going to stop. And what tends to happen is the hiring stops. Certain people don't get hired no more, and then you start putting men back in positions to make money because the work environment starts to become more comfortable. No one talks about the work environment when it comes to men and women. One thing about women, I love being about women. I love it because it makes your testosterone just skyrockets, especially when you have nice, pleasant looking, and they comfortable to be around with ladies that you're talking to. And I interact with ladies every day. But it does come a time where you do come across. And when you do, it becomes a uncomfortable environment to be around women that are in a work environment that make it uncomfortable because they do things and they want a reaction, but your reaction could turn into you being terminated. So you have to be cautious. You have to be cautious of the things you say, because if you don't think about the things you say, that's your job. I think going forward, you're going to see more and more. We've been seeing it in government. We've been seeing it in corporations, big corporations. A lot of women being terminated. We see men, but women are more so the biggest ones are affected behind the job losses. It showed in the numbers, and we know why. No offense, a lot are in the DI higher, and you also have some that do qualify. But just because we have some that qualify, how many men are not qualified or qualified? A lot of the narratives today in the workforce, have been pushed to promote women. Well, if you notice, we are in the times now where as though the housing market, the job market has plummeted due to the push of women. And we already know who's the most in debt. It's not a bash of women, but women spend the most and they're the most outlandishly, like they just don't think about the money resources, where they're coming from, and how the bills are going to get paid, because a lot of dudes do bail women out, and now we don't reach the point where as though men turn the table. Men think different. And we also operate differently when it comes to money. So when you look at the trajectory now when it comes to the job market, you're going to start to see more and more men start to go back into the workforce more. And not only that, you're going to start to probably see more men starting their own companies and businesses, because men are starting to push differently than how we used to push before. A lot of men have lost a lot of hope in the job market. And it's due to the narrative and the push of just promoting a certain sect that thought the economy was going to grow better, but it did nothing but create chaos. So this is my take, but also not behind real statistics. And if you think I'm lying about the job,